ensure everyone on camera is dressed for the camera. And we may also use stills and recordings for future publicity. Everyone will be on mute as they enter, and everyone is expected to be in their best etiquette and adab. So if you disrespect our house rules, or you might have to leave the room lah. Okay. So any questions that you have, please do so during the Q&A session after Sis Suliyati and Brother Sufian has done with their presentation. So moving forwards. So let me just introduce you to our speakers for tonight. We have Sis Suliyati Berori, or should I say Ustazah Suliyati instead? So Ustazah Suliyati is the founder of MuslimParents.SG. She is, as you can see here, highly educated. Besides that, she is also a 𝗕𝗓𝗏𝗧 qualified Quran teacher. And one interesting fact is she has been homeschooling her children from 2013 to 2020. MashaAllah. Okay, that is a lot of commitment, Sis Suliyati. Next is Brother Sufian Hanafi, or should I say Ustaz Sufian Hanafi? He is a counselor with a master's in counseling, and he is also an imam and a Quran teacher as well. With 15 years of experience in family services and mental health care. And besides that, he's also the trainer for the 𝗥𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗍𝗶 program by MuslimParents.SG. Okay, so shall I give the stage to Brother Sufian and Sis Suliyati now?
All right. Assalamualaikum.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Let's begin with Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirrabbilalamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, very good evening to everyone, and welcome to this talk, and thank you for signing up and also wanting to spend your Saturday night with us. So as you can see already, I'm Sufian, and this is Suliyati. We are from MuslimParents.SG, and the title of the topic, as you can see on the screen, is Raising Well-Adjusted Children. Specifically, we are going to be talking tonight about puberty stuff.
Parenting for
puberty. And I guess that's also because we have been conducting our 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏 course since 2019.
Pre-COVID, yeah, pre-COVID we did it. I think it was face-to-face workshops, but then during COVID we migrated to Zoom. Okay, and Alhamdulillah, we've been doing it for about 4 years now, and yeah, I think we've been discussing puberty with children from. For girls, it's between 9 to 13, 14 years old. For boys, it's roughly around 11 to 14 years old.
That's right.
So yeah, so we've been in contact with children, preteens and teenagers. So inshallah, we have seen the questions that are asked, that have been asked by all of you here. So inshallah, we are very excited to explore the questions and yeah, give our take on the questions that have been asked. Yep.
That's right. So for tonight's talk, I understand that it's going to be in English, but we have had some questions that have come in Malay as well. So we'll be mixing it up. At any point in time, if some of the terms that we use, if you're not very familiar with them, just let us know and we'll try to translate it. I believe they can type the questions in the chat. Yeah. So we have moderator Sister Khatim who will help us with that. And yes, moving on, I wanted to add to the demographics that we've been serving actually since we've started our courses. Apart from catering to the upper primary and lower secondary, we also were teaching to children from the secular schools as well as the madrasa. So we've always had a mix of students. Parents were sending in, so even from the full-time madrasa, some of them, and we always make it a point when we engage with the children to ask them where they learn Islam from, whether it's from part-time madrasa, full-time madrasa, whether it's from their parents, whether it's from their grandparents. Partly because we know that whatever that we impart to them will only be able to stick for so much, you know. Yeah, it's like a couple of hours we spend with them, and then we try and ensure that they bring it home and get the parents to see the materials that we've shared, because we know that at the end of the day, it's the parents who will need to deal and face with these issues on a day-to-day basis, right?
I mean, yes, definitely. Because I think parents, you see your children on a daily basis, whereas, you know, when your children come to us for the workshop, it's only going to be at most 4 hours. Okay, so I think the back end of the work has to be done by parents. Okay, so that's why I feel that this is a very exciting topic. I think it's very timely, especially in this climate, in this era, you know, where you see a lot of different opinions on sexuality education. Okay, so yeah, so
yeah. So let's have a sort of a discussion about this, our experiences and some of the things that we can share with you tonight, maybe for about half an hour or so, and then we'll be open to questions. We've already had lots of questions coming in before the session, so let's see where we go from here, inshallah. So the first thing maybe we want to talk about is why are we even involved in this, and why do all of us have to actually deal with this issue?
I mean, the fact that you are here means that, you know, this topic is something that you want to find out about, right? So the question is why? Why should we be curious or concerned about this topic? Okay, why do we talk about puberty?
Yeah, and especially so for some of the parents, we have two ends of the spectrum. One end will actually come and tell us there's no need to actually discuss all these issues, right?
Yeah.
And it's too R-rated for the children, you know. Why are we talking about
this? Are actually based on actual feedback from parents who actually came up to us and say, is it necessary? Why can't they just learn it just before they get married? So there's one end of the parents that say that, okay, they just need to learn it just before they get married. Then you have
we have the other end, which is they say that oh, now I forgot what's the other end of the spectrum already. But anyway, yeah, they want, they're very worried about this, and they want more of this. Yeah, but then they don't know how to deal with it. Yeah, so and this comes from the questions that we actually hear from the children themselves. Yeah, because we know for a fact from the children that they know a lot of stuff already. Some of them don't know what's right and wrong, what's real or not, what they're supposed to do or not supposed to do. And when we meet them, we hear very interesting questions and very sometimes a bit hilarious, but yeah, with all due respect to them and their curiosities, yeah, lots of very interesting questions. I have one. Can you think of anyone? Or maybe while you're
yeah, I think whenever we conduct this workshop, okay, especially for the 𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗪 for girls, I'm not sure whether for boys is the same thing, but one thing that girls, especially in the secular schools, so those parents with children in secular schools, you know, there's one part of the talk or the workshop, our 𝗪𝗶𝗪𝗪 workshop, where we talk about gender. Okay, we talk about you know, male and female being created in pairs. Okay, and without fail, every workshop that I've conducted, I always get questions from girls, mostly in secular schools, asking about lesbian relationships. They will say, oh, my friend likes this other girl, what do I say to her? So as you can see, you know, this type of questions, these children, they come in at about P5, P6. They're already very aware of what is going on out there.
The fact that there are
the fact that
different relationships
inside in the school. Okay, so yeah, so these are the questions that have been asked, and for madrasah students, I think so far I have not had such a question, because we do conduct this workshop for madrasah students as well, but they are more curious about the fiqh of it. Like, for example, okay, the color of my discharge is this. Should I be worried? Does it mean that I'm about to have my period soon? So they are very specific, and they will tell me things like, oh, teacher, Madam Suli, I will never be able to ask my ustazah this question because I'm very embarrassed. Yeah, so these are questions and answers that children, the girls, have asked me. How about for you?
Yeah, well, for the boys one, it's usually quite, as I said, it can be hilarious, but part of our job is to keep a straight face when we do it with the children. One of the questions that I had recently was, Ustaz, when we have the wet dream, what's in the wet dream? Who do we see in the wet dream? So that question's kind of threw me off a bit. Another question that I've had recently was, when we have an erection, and then I try my best to stop the erection, but I can't. How do I actually stop the erection? Because I try to physically try to push down my private parts, but then it comes back up again. And these are questions that the boys actually ask directly. But I think it's also indicative, and I think alhamdulillah for us, we are thankful to have the opportunity to engage the children on this topic, because with these questions, it shows us that they are comfortable enough with what we've done so far to actually ask us and clarify some of their doubts, some of the things that they can't find answers to. Yeah.
And it's also important to have this Islamic sexuality education. At least if you don't send your children for these workshops, you should at least talk about it with your children, because in schools, in MOE schools, I was once a sexuality education trainer myself, okay, but the sexuality education programs in school are mostly reduced to reproductive health classes. It's more of like preventing pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, okay, whereas if you look at it from the Islamic perspective, we want our children to even, we don't even want them to go near zina. Okay, so there's the Islamic aspect which is not touched on in school. Okay, and unfortunately, I think we all are aware that the movement out there is changing. So children are aware of things like different pronouns. Our own children, I think they have asked us before. Our elder daughter, she actually asked questions like, why do people use she/her? So they do notice this kind of things, especially if you use social media. Okay, in social media you can see pronouns and things like that. So if we don't talk about it with our children, the first point that they will turn to is either their friends, okay, who may not have the correct information, or they might turn to social media or internet. Again, the kind of information that's out there might not tie in with our Islamic worldview, our Muslim worldview. Yeah, so we have actually a question from a parent. The question is, at what age should parents talk to their children about puberty and how to do so? So what is your take on that?
Oh, okay. So I mean, for us, sexuality education, one of the purposes is we know that children need to grow and develop and need to understand about themselves as they grow from children to adults. Sexuality and sexual development is just one of the many different domains in which, as a human, we grow from children to adults, to teenagers, and to adults. So this, parking it in the whole context of growth, we have this approach that sexuality education should begin as early as possible. Yeah, it comes at the point where the child needs to go to the bathroom and start to wash after himself, herself, start to have, to be aware about, passing urine, passing motion, and then they start to understand things like the parts of the body, and then they have things called private parts of the body. So then already, you have to start explaining. When children wear clothes, for example, they have to wear their normal clothes, but we also dress them, and we have undergarments for the children. That in itself is actually a very good opportunity to start explaining why. I mean, if we think about it, just wearing clothes is enough, but why do we need undergarments? Why do you need special clothes for special parts of the body? And I think that is already an opportunity to start, not necessarily talking about, you know, puberty or reproduction and things like that, but just introducing them to all these concepts so that eventually, when you have that conversation about the birds and the bees, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Okay. So, well, I hope this gives a brief idea about why we are involved in this and why I think we all have to be, you know, start to wisen up and also, you know, be more aware about these issues.
Just now you mentioned about, you know, as when they are very young, you mentioned that you should have to start talking to your children as young as possible. And I have to say that, you know, we are starting this workshop at local madrasa, and one of the things that we want to touch on at an early age, you know, like at primary 1, primary 2, the first things that we want to introduce them to is actually the actual proper terms for different body parts.
That's right.
Who can see, who cannot see, who can touch, who where. Okay, so sexuality education actually begins as early as possible. In fact, the moment they can start to verbalize, the moment they can start to talk, that is the perfect opportunity for you to introduce them. You are a boy because you have, you know, a certain private part. You are a girl because you have a different private part. And we teach them about the body awareness, okay? And we start to teach them, okay, you are a girl. We start to introduce them to their gender.
You know, when you mentioned this, right, it just got triggered in me because today, this morning, we just brought our daughter to go swimming. So just thinking about the swimming pool itself and, you know, going to the changing room, you know, just in public, going to the changing room, you have male and female, and just that idea of having to go to separate bathrooms and you can't cross. Whereas if you were to use that as a teachable moment at the swimming pool, right? Because under 6 you can still go to the opposite gender, but then above 6 you can't, right? And it's not saying that at 7, you know, they've already puberty, but what the implication is that after 6, you know,
they're more aware. They can see, they are able to draw conclusions. Okay, so yeah, you can see, yeah, I mean, the fact that they say only below 6, I mean, that's time for us to actually think, why 6?
And it's a teachable moment for the children, because definitely they will start to ask why they can't follow the parents anymore, right? Yeah, that's right.
So which brings us to the next slide, which is parenting in the larger context. Okay, so you know, when we talk about puberty, why do we want to talk about puberty? The thing is, as Muslims, we have to ask ourselves, okay, what is the outcome that you want from your child? I think as parents, I'm guessing, I don't know whether I'm able to ask a question here. Okay, for the parents who are here, how old? Rhetorical question. Okay, how old are your kids? Like, actually, I just want to find out. How old are your kids? Okay, maybe you can type it out in the chat group so that we can see, like, okay, why, how old they are, and maybe we can sort of understand. Okay, what is it that you want from your child? The overall outcome that you want from your child, okay, as a Muslim, okay, not just as like, okay, I want my child to be successful, okay, pass PSLE, okay, as a Muslim, what is the overall outcome that you want from your child, okay?
And I think, you know, as we wait for the responses and the lots, thank you so much for responding.
9, 5, 6.
I think what we wanted to send across is that when we talk about sexuality education, we're not engaging in this endeavor for the fun of it. We're not doing this for a very specific, you know, we're running a specific crusade, you know, for a group against group, you know, that kind of thing. But really, we see sexuality education in the larger context of parenting, of bringing up children, and in our context as Muslim parents, it is about parenting them to be good Muslims as they grow older, and whatever it is that we're going to discuss, and if it's R-rated or things like that, it's not because, you know, oh, it's for the thrill of it, you know, but it really is because we want them to understand things so that they can conduct themselves properly as they grow older. Yeah.
Okay, so I can see from the responses here, It's very varied. We have some as old as 21 and some as young as 1. Okay, but mostly it's in between. So these are mostly, I can see the pre-teens, the twins years, the TWEENs, the twins and the teens years. Okay, so I mean, this is I actually sort of guessed that. I mean, before we started, I was also thinking, I think the parents who want to join this talk would be those who have children around this age group. Okay, because I think this is the time when you start to worry, okay, how do I start talking to my children about puberty? Okay, and yeah, so the question is, what, you know, how important is it to discuss about puberty, and you know, how does it help to contribute to the outcome that you want for your child? And the answer is, it's very, very important, because
making that link is important.
Making that link is very important, because we want to help them understand that as a Muslim, you know, once you have become baligh already, there are certain responsibilities that you have to be aware of. Okay, and one of the things that we also touch on is actually the different feelings. We are quite open with them. We tell them that, you know, because of all the hormones that's going on in your body, you will start to develop a lot of feelings. You will have sexual attraction. Okay, why is it? One of the things I like to joke with the girls in my workshops will be, you know, one day at about maybe when you are 9 years old, you look at the boy sitting next to you and say, this boy is so irritating. Like, you look at your classmate who is a boy, you can think that this boy is so irritating. And then one day, bam, you look at the boy like, oh, actually he's not bad looking, you know, and you start to think, why is he so handsome? And I actually conducted this workshop at a local madrasah. And I say, you know, this feeling, what I call it is the gatal feeling, the mental feeling. And then one girl shouted.
What is gatal in English?
Gatal is like
itchy,
flirtatious lah. Okay, not literally itchy, but flirtatious face. And one girl who was in primary 6 actually shouted the answer from the back. She said, from last year, she actually shouted that she has started feeling this from primary 5. So the thing is, regardless of, like, you know, we think that, okay, when we send our children to a full-time madrasah, or maybe like, okay, even if not from a full-time madrasah, but you try your best to control the things that your children view, you know, the things that your children discuss with their friends. The thing is, we cannot stop some of the biological changes that will happen in your children's body. So we have to explain to them, you know, these feelings, they are part and parcel of puberty, but as a Muslim, it is our responsibility to curb. It's a nafsu, right? It's a nafs. It's a like a, what's a nafs? It's a desire, lower desire. Okay, like a lower desire. So yeah, it needs to be discussed.
Yeah. So I think that as for the boys, if I can add, you know, from the boys' perspective, how we try to link it is we talk about, of course, responsibilities. That one cuts across boys and girls, but for the boys, we emphasize that the need to respect the opposite gender. Yeah. So you know, we talk about, you know, whether male or female, everyone is equal in the eyes, in the sight of Allah, and the best, those who have the best taqwa or the best piety. So we emphasize this because at the same time, we also don't want to perpetuate certain, you know, misogynistic sort of views, you know, and we are also trying to sort of impart that as well, these values of respect in the boys. So at the end of the day, when we talk about the sexuality education or the 𝗔𝗶𝗹𝗶 causes, and when you have your conversations with the children, your own children, what we can suggest is always linking it back to what happens after you have reached puberty, because you start to be accountable, everything starts to be counted, and they have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it's the good stuff that they do, the bad stuff that they do, and they have to start being more responsible. Yeah, as Muslims. So this is the larger context that we are talking about.
I'm also curious. I want to ask you actually, because you selected this picture for
yes, I selected this picture.
Ask why this
picture? Well, I obviously I don't know who has passed away, but what I wanted to emphasize on was, at the end of the day, we as parents, what we hope for is a point where when we pass on, we leave behind children that will be able to pray for us. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, will perpetuate, right, in terms of the your own rewards. So the way for you to do that is to ensure that the children will be brought up as good Muslims, so that they will be able to continue doing that for you, for us as well. And this sexuality education is really just one aspect. There's so many, of course. The academic studies, you know, there are other skills that they need to develop, communication skills and things like that. And sexuality education is just one. So this is the larger context. So whatever it is, we've had so many questions coming in before the session. Whatever strategies that you adopt, bear this in mind, that this is the larger context. Yeah.
So when you talk about
moving towards that direction.
Yes, correct. So basically, when you talk about puberty, don't just focus on the biological aspects. Of course, it's very important. But you have to link it back to the fact that once you have reached the age of baligh, you are not just responsible for your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, you know, all the things. One of the things that we emphasize on is that once you baligh, the two malaikat on your shoulders, they start recording already. Okay, they will start recording for your book. Okay, your own book. So regardless of where you are, your own report book. Okay, and this report book is, you know, more important than any report book that we will receive in our life, right? So we tell them, you know, you must be conscious of what you do. Okay, whether your parents are there or not, you know, whether you do your ibadah when your parents are around versus, you know, when your parents are not around. In school, for example, and our own children, they attend the secular schools. So they've had instances where they have to stay back late and they have to pray in school. Okay, they're only in primary school, but we emphasize to them, okay, this is part and parcel of learning how to transition to adulthood, because right now you haven't baligh yet. We have to prepare them. We cannot like, okay, now you baligh, then you start to pray. We cannot, okay, because if we do that, it's a shock because they've never done it before. Okay, so for those of you whose children are still pre-baligh, okay, you have to start emphasizing to them the importance of ibadah, okay, regardless of where you are. The 5 fardu prayers, kena jaga. You must be very careful to fulfill them, because if you only emphasize this only after they have reached that puberty, it's a bit, I wouldn't say it's too late. Nothing is too late. Okay, in life, nothing is too late. Never say that, oh, my child is really too big, too bad, I cannot do anything. Some parents are like that. But no, the thing is, in life, we are always able to learn and relearn, unlearn, relearn, and learn new things, right? Yeah, so, but it's best if, let's say, I can see from the age that you have written in the chat group, okay, those 10, 11 years old, and if your children are attending secular school, start emphasizing to them, you know, this is the time. And so this is, puberty is not just about the bodily changes, it's about your responsibilities as a Muslim.
I would think that perhaps a majority of the participants or attendees for tonight might already be familiar with praying and things like that. So I think, you know, as a value add, you know, the emphasis on, you know, not missing the prayers, not missing the prayers, and also trying to stay on time. You know, those are some things that you might want to push before the actual point of puberty. So yeah. So we've had questions about how to prepare, what to teach the boys. So we don't have a laundry list because, as you can see, the learning will not end. You will continue to discover.
You can see this picture.
As you can see this picture.
Carrying,
yes, that's right.
Okay, but basically, I think even as parents, you're always learning. You know, some of the, as trainers for our 𝗪𝗶𝗶𝗋 workshop, we also learn, like from the questions asked, we're like, hey, I've never thought of that. You know, one of the questions that one girl actually asked me, I think last week during my 𝗪𝗶𝗋𝗋 workshop at the local madrasah, she asked me, what if I'm colorblind? Because I was teaching them how to tell when they have finished their menstruation. Okay, so for girls, right, for ladies, you know, you have to do your ghusl, you have to do your shower, your compulsory shower to get out of janaba, right? The state of janaba. So I was telling them, you know, this is how you differentiate the color. This is how you know you can already pray. And the one question stumped me. She asked, what if a girl is colorblind
Yeah.
I've never had such a question before. So it's like such a very interesting PK question, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if you're colorblind and you look at your panty liner or your pad and you're unable to differentiate the color? What then? What is your next step? So I actually told her, okay, actually, I'm not sure. Let me ask. I haven't yet found out the question. Maybe answer.
As much as we try to impart the basics on them,
Correct.
I mean, we know our limits as well. In terms of, there are very technical aspects of fiqh that sometimes we don't expect from the children, and we have to just take a rain check, and then we clarify first before responding to them. So yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, with the children these days, they will ask these kind of questions, and they will ask questions that you don't expect, or perhaps you already know, but then I mean, later on we'll be discussing about this as well. Which is about how then do we respond to the children's questions, even though we know the answer.
Do you have any questions from the boys that also stumped you? Like
yes. Recently I had a question which was
you can share.
Is there any other way for babies to be produced other than sexual intercourse? Yeah. So, I mean, of course, we know that it's possible. I mean, in vitro fertilization and things like that. But then, again, responding to the children, and also then it also made me think, other than IVF, is there any other way? I mean, yes, of course there are, but then, we'll then have to, because we don't necessarily expect questions like this from primary school children, right? But then there are already responses out there from our ulama who are already talking about things like, for example, surrogacy, pregnancy, and things like that. And of course, these are the various ways in which people are trying to push the boundaries of human reproduction. But whether it's permissible in Islam is a different question altogether.
Yeah. So we just want to share that the two questions that we shared with you just now, they were asked by primary school children, by the way. So you can see that in terms of maturity, I think some parents might be in denial. That's why some parents say, never mind, I let them learn only before they get married, just before they get married. But the problem is our children are already exposed to so much material out there. And one of the things I like to emphasize on is that our children, they are raised in a generation that is unlike ours. It is so different from our generation. So we cannot expect that they will, I think last time when we were 11, 12, we were, I don't know but like for the majority, maybe at 10, 11, we were not thinking about such things. We were not thinking about, the different gender, not thinking about all what surrogacy, like
IVF, that's right.
Things like that. But because there's a lot of information available because of internet, okay, they can Google, right? They can Google anytime. So the thing is, we have to discuss with them before they Google for the wrong answers, because there's a lot of information, and this is something that we emphasize to our children as well. Google, yes, there's a lot of answers out there, but whether it's the right type of information that you want to look for or that is appropriate for you, that is a different question. So for our own kids, we emphasize they need to ask us for permission. They need to share with us what they are searching for, because it's very different.
So I guess to answer a question that we had before the session, which was, what should I know, prepare, and teach my boys or children before they reach puberty? I think for yourself, on hindsight, having reached puberty already after many years as an adult, looking back, what were some of your curiosities and what were some things that you wished you knew? And this could be from a religious perspective, from a physical perspective, the physiological issues, and of course, these days, the mental health issues as well. And of course, the spirituality issues as well, right? So, and in terms of the biological changes as well, knowing the terms and also being able to explain them, and of course the fit terms as well. And I think that's really what we can give, is actually the domains, and you will need to start thinking like an 11-year-old actually.
I would say to up your game, if you want to talk to your children about the physiological changes, physiological meaning like the biological changes that you see, it's good for you to go to the science textbook. It's a good idea for those whose children are already in primary 5, primary 6, Sec 1, Sec 2. I thought biology last time as a secondary school teacher, and they learn. They are already learning this even in primary school. Of course, in primary 5 they learn it. It's just a touch and go topic, but they already learn about human reproduction. In Sec 1 and 2, they already learn it about it a little bit more in depth. At Sec 3, they learn about it even more, those who take biology. So you have to brush up on your knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, about the different
parts
of the body, not just that like the urethra. Yeah,
okay.
like the different where the different fluids come from. You have to because
yes.
Yeah, what if your child suddenly asks like, okay, actually where does this fluid come from? You have to be prepared. Because some adults that I've met before don't even I found out that they actually don't know that this fluid comes from this outlet.
Yes, outlet is the right word.
Yeah.
Yes.
and you know,
you're talking about females, right? Because males will only have one. Yes.
One outlet.
Yeah.
Yes. But for females, it always surprises, it always shocks the girls when I tell them, you know, about the different outlets for different fluids, and they'll be like, what? I didn't know I had that outlet. Then yeah.
You know what? You know that sums it up. You know, because we were struggling to find the words outlet, to use,
yes,
which is outlet. Whereas when we heard it from the children, and if you may excuse us, the question they asked were, what are these holes for?
What are these
different holes?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, but then you know, we trying to be respectful, of course, and we're having some decorum here. We try to use the word outlet, but then the children may understand it differently because they might think it's some shopping outlet. Yeah. So then that's where the conversation has to have with the. Has to be had with the children, you know,
and you have to practice putting on like a poker face when you talk about these things, because the moment you you know, show signs of discomfort, that's when your children will start to feel a bit shy or embarrassed. A lot of them actually came up to me and say, oh, I will never ask my mom this, or I will never ask my ustazah this, or my teacher this, because I'm so embarrassed. Okay, and one of the reasons why we conduct when we conduct this workshop, okay, number one, because we don't have a personal relationship with the children, so I guess it is easier to talk about something when you don't have a personal relationship, but at the same time it's important to put on a straight face. You know, I'm not treating this as a joke. You know, this is nothing to be embarrassed about, because if we show discomfort, if you are embarrassed talking about your body, then the children also get the signal that, yeah, this is something embarrassing. Like, I shouldn't be talking about this. I shouldn't be asking questions because it's embarrassing. And as a result, we transfer our discomfort to our children. Yeah. So, you know, you have to practice with your partner. Like, you have a partner, practice, you know, okay, how do I make sure I talk about this?
That's right.
And then, sit down together.
I think this comes from a place where generally we are a bit more conservative as a society. And of course, as Muslims, you know, we want to guard our modesty. So other than just the physical modesty, we also try to take great care, you know, not to talk about these topics. But again, that's why we had the larger context at the beginning, because, you know, for us, we are educators, but then for you as parents, you are wanting to make sure the children know the correct stuff, and you're not talking to other children, or you're not grooming, you know, for nefarious sort of objectives, but then for yourself, because you want to model for your children to be able to speak with confidence about their bodies
with adab,
yes, that's right.
If we like a model for them, we talk about these topics, this you know, the changes in the body, whether it's a boy or a girl, we talk about it as a matter of fact way, with a lot of respect. You know, we are sharing with them, you know, this is how we talk. You know, for boys, we don't do locker room talk. You know, we tell them, you know, locker room talk meaning you talk about girls' bodies and things like that. We tell them, this is Allah made the bodies like that. So we cannot disrespect these bodies by talking about it in a inappropriate way, inappropriate way.
And actually for us, what we try to do is we always link it back to a sign of the greatness of Allah. When we talk about various, whether it's the growth, or whether it's a sexual reproduction, or whether it's parts of the body, we always try to link it back to look, hey, look, you know, this is what Allah has created. on you, for you. You have to take care of it, but it's also a sign that, imagine if you didn't have this, imagine if Allah created it in a different way, or even look at how it works, how it functions. Nobody would have thought of that. Nobody could have created that, but this is a sign. When you see it, don't be disrespectful, but then think of Allah. It is actually a sign of the greatness of Allah.
Yep.
So anyway, with regards to discomforts, I think it's also important for us as preparations, right, for as a parent, to also look back and sort of review your own journey going through puberty. What were some of your discomforts? What were some of the things that perhaps things that were maybe made fun of or criticized when you ask questions, or your own curiosities that you had for years and years and didn't get resolved, for example. And these are some of the things that you might want to then have a chat with your partner, practice, go in front of the mirror and practice how you would talk to your child, and see how you do it. To find the words, sometimes it's just to craft the sentences, and the words can be very, very challenging.
I just want to share, because I've been teaching teenagers for more than 10 years. Okay, and I think I'm quite close to my students, generally, not super close, but generally quite close. And I do understand that, sometimes boys, girls sometimes get very embarrassed about their body, because they realize that boys talk about certain parts of the female body in a very sexual way. Yeah, so maybe you can think about one way for parents to start talking about this, as a guide, to guide you to talk about how to approach or talk about these bodies, in a respectful manner. Ask yourself, as a teenager, what were some of the things that you've heard your friends, or even you, how do you refer to these things? We've heard, I'm sure maybe you all were from a good school, but I know, like, from my school, I've heard boys talking about certain body parts. So you ask yourself, how would I want my son to treat the girls around him? How would I want my daughter to view her body in a healthy way? Not like to help them understand that, like Ustaz Sufian said just now, it's like, it is a greatness, it's a sign of greatness of Allah. You shouldn't be embarrassed about the changes. Okay, these things are necessary. Okay, and nothing else can replicate what Allah has created for us.
Okay, so as I said, we had a lot of questions, and we were trying to think, what is the main thread that runs through all these questions, and what common theme, and if you had to take away one thing from all the things that we've been blabbering about since 8 p.m, and you had to remember this, if this word is even too much of a mouthful, remember the picture, right? When talking to your children, and we saw that the children are from different age groups, think about the appropriateness of many things, of the language, how appropriate it is to your children individually, how appropriate it is to your relationship thus far, because some of you may have adopted what we've suggested earlier on, which is, to introduce about gender and sexuality from a very, very young age. But for some of us, maybe we've never done that before, right? So then it might not be appropriate to suddenly just jump into the birds and the bees. Your children will feel very, very awkward. So then in that case, some of the what I would say, the infrastructure needs to be laid out first, the foundations. For example, the foundation in the relationship, the foundation in terms of your communication with your child. Are you even comfortable between parent and child to have conversations, difficult conversations about other stuff, like, for example, school, about teachers, about friends, about things like how they spend their money or their time, or games, for example. Are they then comfortable enough to ask you questions, and ask you questions which are very, very open and adult and transparent? So then that would be a very, very good foundation for you then to start talking about all these things that we've been mentioning just now. So appropriateness is key. Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, because the sexuality education curriculum, they have different levels in primary school and in secondary school and all that. So yes, some of the words and some of the topics that you might want to go into, you also need to look at the age that they're in. Yeah.
But for, let's say you have teenagers, I think it's also a good idea, before you talk about this topic, ask them what they already know. Like maybe just share, what are some of the things that you've heard about? Okay, asking a question, like, you know, when you try to approach a topic that's very uncomfortable for both of you, maybe just like asking, have you actually heard of this term before? Like, you know, what have you heard about it? Okay, and this helps you at least form an idea. Okay, this is how much my child already knows. What can I add on, or how can I, maybe there's that misconception is wrong, that conception is wrong, you know, that view is wrong. So maybe is there a way to correct that misconception well?
Okay. Oh, shall we park the question first?
Yeah, we shall park the question.
So let's maybe look through some of the questions that we've had pre-session. For example, so we've had a list of questions, a lot of questions. We'll just read off for you because you may not have seen this. Bagaimana cara yang terbaik untuk menerangkan kepada anak mengenai bagaimana keluarnya air mani? What's the best way to explain how semen is produced? I think this is not even produced. This is keluarnya. So this is ejaculation. For us, we actually just go ahead and use this word anyway. We talk about ejaculation in our workshop. How do we discuss about body acceptance, being a girl going through puberty, disliking their changing body, what and how to explain about puberty to a 9-year-old girl? How do we start introducing the name of body parts, do's and don'ts? How do we talk to them about, this is actually quite hilarious, pyrography, which is, you know, also symptomatic sometimes in a way. Excuse me. Pyrography is. So parents, the actual word is pornography, not pyrography. Okay, I don't mean to laugh at the expense of this, but you know, really, then we need to know the term, because the term is pornography, not pyrography. Pyrography is something to do with fire, right? Online and sexual desires, and we have a question about how much to share, and whether parents should share with boys about the girls, the puberty developments in puberty for girls, like for example, haid, istihada, nifas, and etc. And how do we support children who are who have an introverted personality and don't like to talk? I think this last point perhaps is linked to the communication part I mentioned earlier on. Then I think, you know, in the context of communication as a whole, it's important to just establish that first. Establish safety, open the channel and make sure that it's working, and then you can introduce different topics and programs, including sexuality. So, you know, talking to the children will not just be about sexuality. Yeah, it will be about, you know, you need to talk to your children about a lot of stuff.
I'm very drawn to this question on
which question?
This question, how do we manage or discuss about body acceptance? Example, a girl going through puberty, disliking their changing body. So I mean, because we have 2 girls at home, and we have been conducting 𝗥𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗍 workshop for girls also, you know, we do share with the girls that, you know, as you undergo puberty, certain parts of your body will change. And I actually explain to them, okay, why do your breasts need to grow bigger? Okay, I'm very frank with them. And I say it with a straight face because I just don't want them to make fun of it. And I don't want them to think that I'm also making fun of their bodies. Say with a straight face. So we explain to them, you know, it's because, you know, ask them to think, okay, what is it that the breast need to do to function as a woman? Then they are able to answer me, you know, oh, it's to give breast milk to the baby. Then I say, yeah, so that means if the breast grow, it's because Allah has willed it for it to grow. You know, it has to be, it's part of the plan to grow so that in future you are able to provide nutrition for your baby. So it has a function. Okay, hips widening, it also has a function. It's to ease childbirth, right? So, you know, when we talk about it in such a manner, we help them understand that the body changes because it needs to, and because there's a bigger plan for it in future, inshallah. Okay, so we help them explain, and of course we do things like we take them shopping for appropriate undergarments, okay, and we do it in a very gentle way, you know, very open, and we are open to them asking questions as well. Okay, so this is one way that we can start to explain about puberty.
Can I just write on that for a moment, because you mentioned about explaining about breasts, and without going into the explanation itself, but the use of the term breasts, you know, and we have a question here, which is how do you explain about the body parts and all that? And I think it's very, very critical to actually use the appropriate terms. And when we do our course, at least for the boys, we know that the boys, you know, a lot of locker room talk and all that, right? So I do acknowledge the different terms that the boys use amongst themselves, things that they've heard, whether their friends use it, whether they've seen it on social media, whether they've seen it in, they've heard it in songs, on radio, in the shopping center, unfortunately in the shopping centers, whether it's things that they've seen on TV or on YouTube and things like that. Yeah, so I would acknowledge it, but then again, going back to the part about you know, the larger context of religion and being a good Muslim, and then emphasizing that, you know, why do people use these terms? They are disrespectful, and actually putting that discomfort on the table and saying that it's because people are uncomfortable using the actual words, and because people think that, you know, talking about private parts and sexual reproduction is funny,
yeah,
which it isn't. Yeah. It isn't at all. Yeah, so we tell them this is serious stuff, because this is about you being an adult Muslim, you know, and this is you about doing things right, because you need to do it for Allah. So we take, I mean, we use humor when engaging them, but we take the crass humor out of sexuality education and confronting it head on, and saying that, you know, terms like, and I will be okay, well, I'm mindful that this is recorded and this could go anywhere, so I'm not going to use those terms, but you know what I'm referring to, all the various terms that boys and some girls also would use for private parts, the vulgar ones, the English ones, the Malay ones, the dialects, right? Yeah, so we would just confront all of those, and we say that, hey, look, these are the biological terms. And this is what it is, and you need to know this, because if you go to the doctor, if you are ill one day, you can't say the doctor, oh, my this or my that, and use a dialect term and all that. It's just inappropriate, you know. Just explain it to them like that.
Yeah, and also there's this one question: how do we start introducing the name of body parts? And I just want to share with you all of you, our approach, which is from the moment we start talking about. We use proper terms from the time when they're babies. Like, we don't call different body names like a nickname. We don't have a nickname for different body parts.
Yeah.
We call it as it is, and it's important for children to know the terms, so that it's actually for their safety. Actually, this is for safety, because children who know the terms of certain body parts, it has been found that they are less likely to be sexually assaulted or sexually abused, because sexual abusers, they actually look for children who are, you know, seemingly innocent, don't know much. So if the child can name, hey, why are you touching my so and so, and they use proper terms, then the adult abusers are actually more worried, because you know why? The child will go to the mother and say, somebody touched my so and so, and they use the proper terms. So it has been found that, you know, for those of you with 1-year-old, 2-year-olds, don't use pet names for certain body parts. They have to know, so that, especially for girls and boys. And I found that the statistics for children who have actually been sexually abused or sexually assaulted at a young age is quite high. It's, I can't remember, for girls it's 1 in 4 or 1, I cannot remember, but maybe I got the statistics from the US, so I'm not sure about Singapore. But in the US, 1 in 4 girls have actually reported being sexually either molested or abused before they reach puberty. And one of the reasons is why? Because it's never been discussed with them that these are the things that you have on your body. People cannot touch certain parts. call it safe touch. Okay, this is very important. So appropriateness, in terms of appropriateness, when should we introduce a name? It's actually appropriate to start from young. Don't think that, oh, I cannot talk about the name. No, this is actually appropriate.
So I guess in conclusion, what we're trying to emphasize is do provide the infrastructure, the foundation, the context, which is appropriate for your child, and cultivate a sort of environment within the relationship, in your family, that provides security, that the children know that they will not be laughed at, that they will not be scolded or criticized for asking such questions, or any question for that matter. And then they know that whatever happens, you have got their back, right? That they know that if they have further questions down the road, they can always come back and ask you. And then you know that that they know from your responses that you come from a place of care and concern and love for them, and that and you can actually also express gratitude to them, especially if you're having difficulty talking about this. One day out of the blue they ask you a question and it just, I know it might throw you off track, but when you do actually hear that question, you can thank them for asking you, and then you can use that as the opening to have more in-depth conversations about this. And I think that is also key, because we've been talking about the physiological changes. We talked about the religious obligations. I mentioned in brief at the beginning about the mental health part and all the psychological stresses. So it might be that they never come back to you, or they never come to you and ask about this, and you never have these conversations, but you will see the psychological parts changing during puberty, right? You will see the mood swings, you will see tantrums, you will see the withdrawals, you will see them suddenly not become your little baby anymore, so if not for all the sexual terms and the body parts and all that, for their own psychological well-being, this security and connection, having that solid foundation is also important.
I also want to touch on, again, drawing from my experience as a secondary school teacher, I just want to share, usually for teachers, we are all aware that the students, the levels that a lot of teachers try to avoid teaching, it's actually the Sec 1s and Sec 2s. Sec 1, Sec 2, Sec 3. Sec 4 fine. Sec 4 and 5, they are fine already. But between Sec 1 to 3, the teachers know that this is the most difficult period. And the reason why is because there's this transition. They from adik-adik, from primary school, suddenly become abang-abang. So the kind of behavior that they display in class is mashallah. Even as a teacher is mashallah. Testing. We read 𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗶, we read dua before we come to class.
But we've all gone through that. We've all been there. I mean, I'm equally as guilty. Right? I was in Sec 1 and Sec 2.
So the thing is, one thing that I realized as a teacher or as an educator and as a parent to a girl who's also undergoing this as well, they actually just want that connection. Basically, they just, they don't do it in a cute way. Like for toddlers, they communicate their need for connection with you by crying. I want mommy, they can say that. But for teenagers, they don't do it in a cute way, unfortunately. And their face also have lost their baby fat. So they're not cute anymore. So, to some parents can be, alamak, so geram, the face is already not cute. And then, the behavior is like that. So they show their need for security and connection by lashing out sometimes. And you realize that the children who have the most, they display the hardest behavior to manage in class, they are the ones who need the most connection with an adult. They actually feel that there's no adult who is willing to hear them out. Like they are being labeled as the bad person, like the bad child. I'm the bad one in my group of friends. Nobody wants to talk to me. My teacher won't trust me. And the way they show this need to is by acting out even more. So the more you see your children acting out, the more important it is to get even closer to them. Like let's say he's acting out, right? Let's say somebody is like moody. Okay, I just want to share that. Okay, for teachers, we've been taught this. Of course, we do it for the same gender. Okay, don't do it to, like, let's say you're a girl. Like, actually, just touching on the shoulder, we've been taught that, you know, just touching on the shoulder, it's a physical connection, even not even emotional. But touching on the shoulder has been proven to calm people down. I remember my professor in NIE saying, you have to channel your calm energy, and when you touch, you are actually able to transfer some of your calm energy to that child. Yeah, just touch like that. Okay. So do you feel the calmness? I'm trying to channel my calmness here. So like if you see someone's angsty, you just like have to touch. Yeah. So I'm just saying that, you know, the more your child
don't go Muslim parents, please don't go. Don't do
it. Yeah. You just want, what I'm trying to say is that the more your child pushes you away, seemingly pushes you away, that's actually a sign that you need to be even closer. But of course, not in an irritating way. Like sometimes they would say, my mother very irritating, unfortunately. So you have to do it in a way that appeals to them. Okay, so for example, if your child likes BTS, BTS, Blackpink, talk about BTS, Blackpink. Even if you don't know anything about BTS, it's okay, just say, hey, I saw Blackpink got Oreo. Got you Blackpink Oreo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's this rage now, Blackpink Oreo. So for girls, maybe you can start off a conversation by talking about what they like. And then slowly you can open up and ask about the deeper questions. Okay. Somebody actually asked a question just now.
Yeah. Right? So, I mean, we've come to the end. Next slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have any other questions or reflections, please feel free to type. Our Madam Moderator will help us as well. And we will also try and look through the questions and see what we can try and address or discuss.
This question I just want to share. I think that was what would you suggest as good or effective hooks? I'm guessing this teacher is an English teacher. Probably. This participant who asked this question is probably an English teacher, because talking about hooks, okay, we learned this in essay writing. You have a hook, right? How do you get them to be engaged and not like I tell you that if let's say you just sit down with your child and say, okay, kita hari ni nak berbual pasal puberty. Your child will just say, oh, I don't want to talk about it, Mama. Okay, they will just switch off. So a good or effective hook is actually to sit down and talk about something that interests your child. So for example, if you're like some of my students, I want to talk about their bad behavior in class, or not bad behavior, like their misbehaviors in class. If they like gaming, I will ask them, oh, what game? Actually, I know zero knowledge about gaming. But you have to fake an interest, not fake lah. You know, show an interest in what they like and ask them questions.
You know, that's a very interesting point, because
boys gaming, by the way.
That's where the hard work is, which is, you know, developing genuine interest.
Yes.
When you're not interested at all.
Correct.
Yeah. You know, the other stuff, like for example, the knowledge bits, the religious, the fake parts, the biological parts, these are stuff that you can research on. Yes, there are many, maybe different opinions. I saw someone asking about LGBT, and immediately there's another already a response about a reference regarding LGBT. So there'll be many about this, right? But with regards to building a connection and a relationship, right? When you're not interested, or when you can't be interested because you're tired, because all the kids are draining you, because you've got work, you've got your own parents to deal with, and then you are maybe having some issue with your partner, for example, and then you have a twin or a teen to deal with, and you have to show interest. That's going to be the hardest part. Yeah. So how do you do that? And I think it has to come from a place of sincerity. Yes, I want to connect, and the reason why I want to connect is ... You know, I know the risks, I know some of the challenges. If I don't do this, then this might happen. You know, I want to make sure, you know, whatever, blah blah blah. So yes, I'm gonna bite the bullet, and I'm gonna be interested. Yes.
So I just want to also explain, you can have the best information, you can have all the information that you need to about puberty. You can have all the answers for like, okay, for example, like, oh, how do I talk about body changes, right, with my child? You can have all this information, but if you're unable to even get the interest in the first place, then all this information will go to waste, because the information is to be transmitted to your child, right? If your child is not even interested in listening to you, then you can just, might as well you come up with a PowerPoint presentation and your child will still not listen to you. Okay, yeah.
I like that point, because there's also and this is another approach, which is you then need to be such a person that your child will be interested in you. Don't be a boring person. Whatever it is, whether it's your occupation, whether it's the stuff that you cook that they love to eat, whether it's the games that you play together. For fathers, if it's the dad jokes that you crack, and then they love it so much, those are the openings, those are your entry points, right? To build that relationship.
So yeah, if you can make it a point to sit down for dinner together, these are certain things like as children grow older, we don't take a lot of we don't really emphasize on certain things, like or maybe there's not enough time to sit down together for dinner. But this is actually one way for you to slowly start. These are conversation starters for you to talk about puberty, because talking about puberty cannot take place suddenly. You have to reach a point where you are comfortable with your children to talk about it. So in order for you to be comfortable, you have to be very close to them. You need to have the connection, just on the previous slide, okay, about connection and security. We make them feel secure enough to ask us questions, that they don't feel like, okay, if I ask my mom this, I'm going to be judged, or I don't want to talk about this with my mom, because so
okay.
yeah.
So I just want to go to two of the questions here. The first one is whether to have the conversation before or after the 𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗹 workshop here, and we think that you can have the conversation before that. It's not going to be detrimental. There are no surprises, and we'll be more than happy if the child is prepared, and then come to the workshop. It reinforces what he already knows, or if it's something different, then he can at least clarify. And of course, for us, we always expect that the parents of our participants to continue the conversation after the workshop as well. Have a look at the materials, and then continue your conversations. Come from a place of curiosity and ask, oh, what did the ustaz or the ustaz say about this, about that, about this, about that, and what do you retain from the workshop? Yeah. So that's one.
So it's before and after lah. Basically, it's better to have it before and after.
That's right. Yeah. There's another question up there, which is about, this is the big question that we were expecting as well, which is how to explain about different sexual preferences and different sexual orientations. This is pretty clear. So I think the first point is we need to be very clear what the Muslim position is. And you can look this up, what our official position is. I think Moise has talked about it because of the recent developments in Singapore and how best to explain, right? So then it is about then bringing it down to the level of children and then explaining it to them. Yeah, and I think we cannot run away from it, because they will, when we talk to the children, we will tell them that eventually when they go to school, they will encounter friends who will talk about these things, may openly express themselves as like this, and actually in a very indirect way, some of the educators may also be like this. So then it is something that they need to learn to be able to engage with in our society, in the same way that we engage with people of different faiths and with people of the opposite gender, people of the different age groups. It is just about trying to engage different groups in terms of explaining to them why it happens, right? Or whether it's allowed or disallowed. That one's quite clear. Why it happens, and then I think we then go into what exactly is sexual desire, right? What exactly is sexual intercourse? We build on all that information, that there are different, reproductive organs. They have their various functions. their hormones, so it really comes from a position of biology. And then we bring in our traditional sources, which is what Islam says, that we are created male and female, and there's no third gender, and we have been created to reproduce, and then we go from there. We explain from there, and we teach also about respect when they encounter.
Yes, I think it's important to also talk about this issue with respect, because you also want to share with them that these people, they have different opinions. So we cannot force our opinions on others, so we respect these opinions, but at the same time, we should also understand what it means to be a Muslim. The name Islam means to submission, right? So it means when Allah tells us something, as a Muslim, I mean, to me, it's just at the end of the day, it boils down. I like to use this example, like when Allah said, okay, don't eat swine, don't eat pork, okay? If you ask people, okay, why do you not eat pork? And people can answer things like, oh, because there's a parasite and things like that. Yeah, sure. I mean, in terms of health benefits, there are definitely benefits to not eating pork, because there's a lot of germs and a lot of parasites inside pork, right? But at the end of the day, the reason why we don't eat pork is because Allah said don't.
And it's a question of faith.
Yeah, it's a question of faith. Why do we pray 5 times a day? Okay, because people say, oh, when you bow down, there's a connection. You can feel like some people say, oh, there's electromagnetic activity going on and things like that. Sure, but at the end of the day, we pray because Allah has commanded us to. So same thing with this topic. What Allah has commanded us to, we have full faith that is in our best interests as humans, and so we adhere to that command. Okay, and at the same time, because we are Muslims, we believe in that. But if other people are not Muslim, they don't believe in other things, then it's okay. Like in Surah Al-Kafirun, it's written there, to you your way, to I was the last ayat, lakum dinukum waliya din, right? Like your way and this is my way. Okay,
yeah. So I think that is that. Explaining it, there are different arguments and ways of arguing about it, but I think what Suli has been talking about is actually, it comes down to faith. Yeah.
And this one, there's another question: how do we help our child navigate interaction with close peers who have come out, or if they themselves go through this coming out process? And I just want to say that again, at the end of the day, when you have these conversations, it's important that you have already established that close relationship. I think Sis Shahida, who's asking a question, you are a teacher, right? You understand fully that if a child loves you, really loves you, has a very deep connection with you, you can tell the child to do whatever and she will do. Like, like let's say you are asking these students to do homework, certain homework, right? If your students love you, right, no matter how much, they will still do it for you because they love you. So it's the same thing with parenting. You want to create that connection, that deep, secure connection, that deep bond with your child, so that when it comes to answering questions or having this tough conversation, it's easier for your child to understand your point of view or to accept your point of view. Yeah, if you don't have that connection, you're constantly scolding your child, or like the child thinks of you as very naggy, and you come in and talk about this kind of conversations, right? They will switch off, unfortunately. Yeah, and I've seen it too many times now.
If I may add also this thing about navigating interactions, right? I think the child also, as an outcome, the child needs to develop a very strong identity, to be confident enough to engage and to know that this is the boundary, this is where I will not cross, but I can still engage with you as a member of our society. So to give an example, right, we have children who are attending schools, mission schools, right? So obviously they have certain prayers and certain practices. In fact, our children are in such a school, but then the process has always been, this is your identity, this is another identity, and this is where we will not we will continue to engage, and you know, we'll mix around as friends and help each other and be kind and things like that. But when it comes to things like faith or certain areas, then this is where the lines are. Yeah.
Basically, just help your child become a confident Muslim lah. Like, you know, stand your ground as a Muslim, but at the same time, be confident to engage, but know where the line has to be drawn.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's okay, we have 10 minutes left. Okay, so we'll maybe answer this last question, and then
I've got maybe 2 questions that are a bit linked from what we had before the session and here as well. Here is about how do you explain about sexual activity and at what age. And then we had a question here about the boys one, which is how do you what is the best way to explain about ejaculation, the one I mentioned earlier on. Yeah, so we actually explain it in a very biological way. Yeah, we'll say that, you know, because the brain develops, I mean, this is an example of how we would deliver it in short. So the brain develops because you're growing older, you grow smarter, you understand more things, then you start to be more aware of things, and you start to feel more attracted to things because of the development of hormones in the body. And one of the things that you'll be excited about is actually when you look at, for boys, when you look at girls and you look at ladies and things like that. So then when you start to get excited, the heart pumps blood and it will flow into your penis, and then it will start to become hardened because it will be flushed with blood, and that's when erections happen. And we actually teach them about the male arousal cycle, which is then what happens, what fluids will come out pre-ejaculation, during ejaculation, what happens after ejaculation. We actually go into all those details quite matter of factly, and you'll be surprised. The boys, they pay attention. They pay attention. Yeah, because they want to know, and not just in a, not necessarily in a very 𝗵𝗋 sort of way, but really, I think sometimes when I look at their faces, it's like they just can't believe that it's going to happen. And to some of them, I think because they've experienced it, they'll be like, okay, so this is pretty normal, and this is what's going to happen. And the thing is, because we engage in this sort of very informal way, but in a very friendly, but also in a very, we try to be as engaging, and sometimes we add humor without the vulgarity, but we add humor. It adds on to the sexual education, whatever that they've learned in school, and then it adds on to whatever that they've heard from their friends and the ustaz or ustazah. That's why we bring in the part about, you know, mandi, and the part about, hey, what happens, we bring in scenarios. What happens if it happens just before you're going to school on a weekday? You know, how do you deal with it, all the stress and all that, not just the logistics, but then the stress of it all. Yeah, how do you manage, and, you know, tell them not to panic, things like that.
I think it's good to always start by making them feel a little bit more macam relaxed lah. Okay. Like I like to say, okay, you know, as you undergo puberty, have you ever gone into an MRT and then somebody beside you raise the arm and then mashallah, the smell is wonderful. Usually the girls just laugh and then we just talk about, then it's a conversation starter. Why does the body smell? How come below a certain age your body doesn't smell? So then it's a good way for you to slowly talk about the different body changes. And then, you know, when you talk about just now somebody said sexual activity, I mean, I think I'm assuming it's sexual intercourse. You can talk about, okay, how are babies, like what do you need to have a baby? You need a sperm and an egg, right? So where does the egg come from? So it's you just put on your biology teacher hat, or if you're not a biology teacher, you pretend like, okay, imagine after your science teacher, how did she talk about it? Without, you know, I'm sure that yeah, definitely. Okay. So actually,
we have one last question.
Yes.
If not, is that all? Okay.
Okay. Maybe the moderator.
Are we able to take this last question?
Are we able to take this last question, or do we
establishing
have to...
a close relationship with our children? What about as we discipline them? Parents have been strict and naggy
to right the wrongs.
Then how do we start this convo to engage them?
Okay. So just now, one of the questions, right? So basically, we talked about how it's important to have a close relationship, but I'm guessing that the parents have actually already been very strict and naggy lah to right the wrongs. Okay, so basically there's a question about this one. Short answers. Teenagers. Okay, this is one. This is a question about short answers. I think Kurt replies when you are talking to your teenager, the teenager answer like apa dah, you know, like just one monosyllable.
Yes,
no, yes, no, don't want. You know, inappropriate volume in terms of the way they speak to the parents. So how do we establish a close relationship? I think a lot of parents of teenagers do come to us asking, how do I change my relationship with my teenager? And it's important to understand that I think if you look at it from an Islamic perspective, we have certain age groups, certain, like the guideline, below 7, you are supposed to treat them like a king. You don't, you know, just establish that bond. 7 to 14, that's when you discipline them. Okay, then 14 and above, you treat them as a friend. Yeah,
the
so
first seven,
the first seven, yeah, the third, the last part. So I think if, let's say, all this while, the relationship has not been very strong, you have to restart lah. Yeah.
So it's pretty much a staged sort of process where, you know, we've talked about connection, right? So connecting first before teaching, and then sort of supporting and sort of befriending. Yeah, so if that connection is not there yet, and I guess this question is about how do you do that if you've always been very strict. And I think a very simple way is to relax, parents. Yeah, it's easier said than done, but relax. Things are not done your way. Are you able to turn the other way or turn the other cheek? You know, and then take it with a dose of humor. And you know, sort of like be a bit irreverent about the situation, and, like, you know, don't sweat about the small stuff. Okay, think about that larger context. We have Sis Zarina here, who's very experienced with parenting. Go out and have fun with the kids. If you do that for the first time, you've never done it before, the kids are going to think you're crazy. So but then, you know, are you able to then sort of like, yeah, why not, you know, have a crazy day,
somewhere that they like, maybe USS or
but I guess scaffold a little bit, whatever it is that you're already doing which is a bit comfortable, like, for example, having meals together, right? Then maybe graduate to something which is a little bit more adventurous. You know, having a different kind of meal, or a meal in a certain kind of place, or you know, trying something that you are uncomfortable with because you're modeling, right? So the child will say, hey, no, you never eat Western food, you don't like Western food, why are you suddenly eating Western food? And again, you know, it is about sitting with your own discomforts, right? That can be a conversation starter.
It might sound like it's like we are rewarding the bad behavior, you know, like I mean, seriously, I mean, I've had parents who say, okay, my child is like doing all these kind of things. And then the solution is go and have fun. You know, go out and treat them to a meal, do something, go watch a movie. And you might think like, why is this person asking me to, it's like I'm rewarding the bad behavior. We are not rewarding the bad behavior. We are actually trying to reach a point where you can even talk about the bad behavior. You know, if it's like, I think we've all been teenagers before. And we all understand that we have some teachers who are, you know, when we went to school, we have some teachers who are very strict, very naggy. The more they nag, ask yourself, do you really pay attention to the teacher, or do you just switch off? So it's the same thing with our children. If you're very naggy, on the surface, they might be like, okay, we listen. But inside, you don't know how much of your nagging they take in. And I always say, teenagers are like almost programmed to rebel, because that is the developmental stage. The developmental stage from, I think, 11 all the way to 18, even older than that, that is the age when they experiment with breaking boundaries. So if your children break boundaries, that is to be expected. Or how you calmly approach it, that is to you, up to you.
Thanks for
yes.
Thanks for all this sharing from Sister
Shahida and Sis Zarina, Sis Nur Shahid. Have a date one-to-one with each child. Very important.
Yes. You have to be very creative.
Yeah,
and think
go out, have fun with the kids. When I was a difficult young adult, my mom would prepare my favorite dishes for dinner. MashaAllah. So these are things, you think about, okay, what are the things that adults in your life who have done nice things to you? Okay, what are those things? And how did that make you feel? And replicate that. So it's not about addressing the misbehavior head on. You have to connect with them first. Then only then when they are calm down, they have calmed down, then you can talk to them. Okay, that's what happened actually in last week. I got a call from your teacher. Actually, what happened? Don't immediately say, hey, last week you did this, right? Cannot. You must, hey, actually, what happened? I heard this. What happened? Okay, so when we ask a question, it is a conversation starter. Whereas if you go in and accuse them, that conversation will stop. Just there. You'll be the only one talking. Your child will not do any listening at all. Yep. Okay.
So I think we've pretty much come to the end.
Yes.
We hope that we've not been able to attend to all the questions, but we've tried to take the approach where we try to give overarching strategies and approaches, a bit of the philosophical idea behind, how to do what you do, what you're going to do. So, the parenting is about really being very creative, thinking out of the box, attending to the individual needs of your child. And there's going to be a lot of work. And you know what? We go back to the larger context, right? One day we are going to pass on, our deeds are going to be cut off, and we hope that our children will be able to continue that by praying for us. Yeah. And the only way that you can ensure that is to make sure that your kids love you, that they'll continue to pray for you, that they will be in a position and have the knowledge to pray for you, and that their prayers will be accepted by Allah. So that's the end goal that we want to move towards. Yeah. So we hope that it's been helpful for all the attendees tonight. Yeah. And then of course, if you need to contact us, where we are, MuslimParents.SG. So, or Firdaus. Yeah. Get in touch with them as well. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's hand over back to. Have you got any last things?
I think no, inshallah.
Okay.
Nothing much. Nothing else. Okay.
Yeah. Right. If not, then we hand over back to the moderator. We're so sorry we overrun by 4 minutes. Yeah.
Sure. That's okay. I think all of us are enjoying this session very much, and we don't mind like the extra 4 minutes or so. So I think it's been very beneficial and been very educational. And inshallah, we pray for your. Sorry, my mom was calling me. Okay, so we pray that it benefits everyone here, and inshallah to the other people who will be watching this recording. And we thank MuslimParents.SG for their generous sharing. I think I learned a lot of new things today, even though I have a child who's hitting puberty. I thought I have all things covered, but fortunately, of course, Allah will tell me that you have so much more to learn, and I'm here sitting here and understanding that very well. That there's more to learn. It's always up your game, right? Sunni. Yeah. So I think we just I think there's a few questions, but I think generally most of the questions are well answered and well responded to. So I think for my own takeaway from this whole wonderful session is the connection part. So when there's a connection, then everything else stems from there, right? With regards to respectfully communicating with the child, and because there's connection and you want the best for them, then whether you like it or not, I don't know whether that's the appropriate term, you up your game to gain more info, and also to up your parenting methods as well. Like, my parents didn't do this, I turned out okay, so I'll just do the same thing. So that's not the message here. The message here is to up your game and do better. And hopefully, when you know better, you do better, and then it's much better for your children who is living a different time period than how you were raised last time, 30, 40 years ago, and that kind of thing. And I think that I hope that, you know, most of the questions that we receive here are generally the general anxiety of parenting, if I may if I may describe it like general anxiety. Am I doing this right? Am I doing the right way? How do I approach? So it's like, to me, it's like, oh yeah, come to think of it, it's general anxiety in parenting lah. So when we know more, we are more confident, then we're confidently guiding our own children, inshallah. So thank you for that. Thank you for a lot of things here. I'm so happy that, you know, we invited both of you here. So yeah, before we close the majlis, maybe I'd just like to remind people that why is it going up? Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I got a title right now. Alhamdulillah. Now how do I share this? Wait, suddenly I become so selenge in I bet my children will see the same thing also. He'll love me and the kind of thing. Okay, so we're closing this session soon, but before we do that, I'm just reminding the people here, the good people here who've been here with us since 8 o'clock just now. Don't forget to join us for our other sessions in Online Family Festival. Next week is about what parents should know about cyber wellness. And afterwards is about conflict and communication in marriage. Do sign up on same link. So far we've had about education on the first week of February, and today is about puberty, and the next section is cyber wellness. So if you have any feedback for us, you can click on the link on the chat box. I wonder if you can see the chat box already. Yeah, I think we shared it already, but I will share it again. Give us your opinions on what you think of the session. How was the session today? What have you learned? And if you would like to suggest any other future topics in the future that may be of benefit to the community, inshallah. If you also would like to continue help us with dawah programs and with resources for the benefit of all, and you know, these programs, please also, because of high demand from our parents, we actually got a grant for this particular session. So Alhamdulillah for Mendaki CLF grant. At the same time, we still do need funding for more quality programs in the future. So your help in our vision of a righteous society is truly needed. So so I think that is it for now. I would like to thank again or rather Ustazah Suliyati and Ustaz Sufian for such a wonderful degrees. And I will recommend each other. I'm for this interactive session. So thank you again. Let's close the session with tasbih kafara. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. And Surah Al-Asr, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal-Asr, innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilus salihat wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. I apologize for any shortcomings on my part, and I'm sure that we have enjoyed the session with Suliyati and Brother Sufian. In case you would like to attend their programs, please go to their Instagram page at MuslimParents.SG for the 𝗥𝗶𝗹𝗋 program. Hopefully, inshallah, in the future, we can work together with 𝗥𝗶𝗹𝗋, with MuslimParents.SG again to bring more great programs for our community here, inshallah. So good night, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.